CBS radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners.
You're back with Dave and Mecky's Shiny Side Out on Revolution Radio, the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net, believe it or not. So push the donate button and subscribe. That's what you do. Do that. Donate to the station. You can also donate to Mecky and I. We don't get paid for this. So if you like what we say, you can also donate to us. Our website is shinysideout.com.au, I think, or .net, doesn't matter. Do that, find us. It's also in the link below the video, and so is all of the other platforms that you'll find us on. Get yourself some merchandise from the station's website, which is also listed below in the video, but if you don't know what it is, it's revolution.radio, that's what it is. And you can get yourself a t-shirt, a mug, or anything you like. First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much for listening to us and being here for 14 years with us so far. So far, it's not going to end today. It's not. So this is show number 698. This is the second hour, and we're talking about ET's rational and logical... Wait a second. Yeah, I'll get it part through to you. ET's rational and logical approach, part 3. Mecky, 698.
890 and 600. Where are we? Which page?
Oh, I have sent you a message, but it's okay. We can get by that. We're up to hypothetical types of biochemistry. Page 14 in, well, at least in my version of the notes. Would you like to start?
You go ahead. You start ahead, my friend.
You can catch up. Yes. Hypothetical types of biochemistry are forms of biochemistry agreed to be scientifically viable but not proven to exist at this time. The kinds of living organisms currently known on Earth all use carbon compounds for basic structural and metabolic functions, water as a solvent, and DNA or RNA to define and control their form. If life exists on other planets or moons of this solar system, for instance, it may be chemically similar, though it is not possible. Sorry, it is also possible that there are organisms, I'll fix that in post, with quite different chemistries. For instance, involving other classes of carbon compounds of another element, or another solvent in place of water. The possibility of life forms being based on alternative biochemistries is the topic of an ongoing scientific discussion informed by what is known as or about extraterrestrial environments and about the chemical behavior of various elements and compounds. It is of interest in synthetic biology and also a common subject in science fiction. The element silicon, which was in my mind from the top of this story, has been much discussed as a hypothetical alternative to carbon. Silicon is in the same group as carbon on the periodic table, and like carbon, it is tetravalent. Hypothetical alternatives to water include ammonia, like I think Uranus has that in the atmosphere, in all forms, in liquid, gas, and solid. Like water, is a polar molecule and cosmically abundant, and non-polar hydrocarbon solvents such as methane and ethane, which are known to exist in liquid form on the surface of Titan. Mecky.
Thank you. Now, just to come back to the basics, and why did we do this show in the first place? The reason we did the show in the first place is that there seems to be an anthropomorphic principle at play here when it comes to alien visitations, alien life forms, etc., etc. Meaning bipedal, one head, one two set of arms, etc., etc. So biosymmetrical, in general speaking, right? This is what alien creatures look like. Whereas in reality, any life form that developed elsewhere, even if it's an Earth-like planet they're from, would be so alien and completely different to us as to be unrecognizable, right? And we don't really know much about other biochemistry out there in the universe, but we do know, though, on this planet, we have something called extremophiles. We have something called tardigrades. Now, these are creatures that can live in environments that have no oxygen, that have no sunlight, and still they live. They just get their heat and whatever else they need from other sources, to be clear. In fact, the tardigrade...
They can be frozen, boiled.
Yeah.
They can live in toxic chemicals.
In fact, tardigrades can survive in the frozen wastes of space, and the radiation that would kill you or me, they can actually withstand up to 1,000 times the radiation that could kill you or me. So there are creatures out there, even on this planet, that are so alien, if you will, in their makeup, that as to almost be unrecognizable. We are coming across these extremophiles, especially deep inside the Earth and at the bottom of the ocean, like the San Marian Trench, which is, I think, 11 kilometers deep. And we are finding that there's life there. There shouldn't be any life, yet there is.
Even those
now this is on Earth.
Even those that live around the hydrocarbon vents at the bottom of the ocean. They eat hydrocarbons.
Correct. Yeah. There's a whole ecosystem there. Now these vents are essentially like sort of underwater hot springs and volcanoes that vent a whole bunch of gas and other materials into the ocean. Now, the interesting thing is this. On this planet we had, and this is what we're talking about in a second, we had 5 extinction level events, generally speaking. And the text it's actually not 5, it's 6. But again, we'll talk about that in a second. Now, 99% of all species that ever lived are dead on this planet alone. And whoever survived whatever extinction level events there were would have been a complete and utter coincidence. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't know what kind of extinction level event was coming your way, or, how best to survive. It would have been a complete lottery. So the life that we see here today on the planet today is the result of a set or sets of highly unlikely circumstances. Okay? Just be aware that what we call a life and what we have here is a complete fluke. Not life itself necessarily, but the form it has taken. That's really what this is about. Now, what's an extinction level event? These events have changed the biology of this planet significantly. Forget the vagaries of DNA and adaptation to new environments. These events completely altered the environment. So evolution is out the window here, right? And in my humble opinion, it was just dumb luck and right place, right time that some species survived over others. One can surmise that other planets have similar events, less or more severe. And if we take that into consideration, then our current ecosystem, including Homo sapiens, is a complete coincidence. Encountering any extraterrestrial, any alien from another solar system that is anthropomorphic is therefore highly unlikely, as the variables are just too vast to produce anything similar to humans, even if the biochemistry is similar or the same. Now, like I said, there have been 5 acknowledged mass extinctions in Earth's history. In my opinion, that's an incorrect count. There are 6. We'll talk about that. Now, what did the Big 5 mass sorry, rather, when did the big five mass extinctions happen and what were their causes? This was written by Hannah Ritchie in November of 2022. There have been 5, and these are called the big 5. Okay, and it's important to understand the speed and scale of species extinction today. So, to understand the reasons and timelines of these events, it's important to what we have today and what's going on today. Now, what's a mass extinction? Okay, they're a normal part of life, if you will, right? They occur naturally and periodically. There seems to be a natural background rate to the timing and frequency of extinctions. 10% of species are lost every million years, 30% every 10 million years, and 65% every 100 million years. It would be wrong to assume that species going extinct is out of line with what we would expect. Evolution occurs through the balance of extinction, the end of species, and speciation, the creation of new ones. Right now, so what they're saying here is that evolution adaptation, yes, takes still place, but only with the species that survive. Okay. Now, extinctions occur periodically at what we would call the background rate. We can therefore identify periods of history when extinctions were happening much faster than the background rate, and this would tell us, excuse me, that there was an additional environmental or ecological pressure creating more extinctions than we would expect. However, mass extinctions are periods with much higher extinction rates than normal. They are defined by both magnitude and rate. Magnitude is the percentage of species that are lost, and the rate is how quickly that happens. These metrics are inevitably linked, excuse me, but we need both to qualify as a mass extinction. In a mass extinction, at least 75% of species go extinct within a relatively short period of time, typically less than 2 million years. Dave.
5 mass extinctions. There have been 5 mass extinctions events in Earth's history, at least since 500 million years ago. We know very little about extinction events in the pre-Cambrian era and early Cambrian earlier, which predate this. These are called the Big 5 for obvious reasons. In the chart, there'll be a chart. We see the timing of events in Earth's history. It shows the changing extinction rate measured as the number of families that went extinct per million years. Again, note this number was never 0. Background extinction rates were low, typically less than 5 families per million years, but ever present. We see spikes in extinction rates marked as the 5 events. I'll put this on screen. Hang on a minute. Middle screen. Voila, monsieur. I'll put us down the bottom. Number 1, the end Ordovician. That's 444 million years ago, or MYA. The late Devonian, 360. End Permian, 250. End Triassic, 200. And end Cretaceous, 65 million years ago. That's the event that killed off the dinosaurs. The 4th event, which I said 200, many people mistake this event as that it killed off the dinosaurs, but in fact they were killed off at the end of the Cretaceous. Finally, at the end of the timeline, we have the question of what will come. Perhaps we are headed for a 6th mass extinction, but we are currently far from that point. There are a range of trajectories that the extinction rate could take in the decades and centuries to follow. Which one we follow is determined by us. And that's the Big 5 right there on screen. Mekki.
Now you're probably looking at the graph there, and you can see here that the first mass extinction killed off 86% of species, 27% of families. The second one, 75% of species, 19% of the families. And the third one, 96% of species and 50% of the families, 57 rather. And then the fourth one, 80% of species and 23% of families. And then in the fifth, excuse me, 76% of species and 17% of families. Now that's a lot, just to be clear. And the Permian with 96% of species gone, that's very, very high, obviously. And I mean, look at this: 86%, 75%, 96%, 80%, 76% of species gone in each of these events. Now, what caused these extinctions? They were all caused by some combination of rapid, dramatic changes in climate combined with significant changes in the composition of environments on land or even in the ocean. There could have been acidification, there could have been acid rain from intense volcanic activity, etc., etc. Now, the end of the Ordovician, which was the first one, was apparently caused by intense glacial and interglacial periods, which created large sea level swings and moved shorelines dramatically. The tectonic uplift of the Appalachian Mountains created lots of weathering, sequestration of CO2, and with it, changes in climate and ocean chemistry. The second one, the Devonian, apparently was precluded by rapid growth and diversification of land plants, which generated rapid and severe global cooling. And the end of the Permian, there was intense volcanic activity in Siberia. This caused global warming, elevated CO2 levels, as well as sulfur levels from the volcanoes caused, again, ocean acidification, acid rain, as well as other changes in ocean and land chemistry. The Triassic, underwater volcanic activity in the Central Atlantic Magmatic Province camp caused global warming and a dramatic change in the chemical composition of the oceans. Again, you can see the chemical composition of the oceans is a driving force in these, and that's something we're actually seeing today. That's something we are driving. And then the Cretaceous. Now, the Cretaceous, unlike the others before, is, well, at least it seemed indications that there was an asteroid impact in the Yucatan, in the Gulf of Mexico. This caused, not America, this caused a global cataclysm and rapid cooling. Some changes may have already predated this asteroid, with intense volcanic activity and tectonic uplift, as you can imagine. However, I did say that there were really 6. This goes way back in Earth's history, and this is called the Great Oxidation Event. Right? This was the worst cataclysm, the worst extinction level event that the Earth had seen. The Great Oxidation Event, or Great Oxygenation Event, also called the Oxygen Catastrophe, Oxygen Revolution, Oxygen Crisis, or even Oxygen Holocaust, was a time interval during the Earth's Paleoproterozoic era when the Earth's atmosphere and shallow seas first experienced a rise in the concentration of free oxygen. This began approximately 2.460 to 2.426 billion years ago during the Silurian period and ended approximately 2.06 billion years ago during the Rhaetian, so a period of about 400 million years. Geological, isotopic, and chemical evidence suggests that biologically produced molecular oxygen, which is a dioxygen or O2, started to accumulate in the Archean prebiotic atmosphere due to microbial photosynthesis, and eventually changed it from a weakly reducing atmosphere, practically devoid of oxygen, into an oxidizing one containing abundant free oxygen, with oxygen levels being as high as 10% of modern as atmospheric level by the end of that particular age. The appearance of highly reactive free oxygen, which can oxidize organic compounds, especially genetic materials, and thus is toxic to the then mostly anaerobic biosphere, may have caused the extirpation of many early organisms on Earth, mostly archaeal colonies that used retinol to use a green spectrum light energy and to power a form of anoxygenic photosynthesis. This is an interesting theory called the Purple Earth hypothesis, if you want to take a look. I won't here now. Although the events is inferred to have constituted a mass extinction due in part to the great difficulty in surveying microscopic organisms' abundances and in part of the extreme age of fossil remains from a time the great oxidation event is typically not counted among the conventional lists of great extinctions, which are implicitly limited to the Phanerozoic eon. Okay, so the reason it's not listed as part of the grade 5 or grade 6 really is because it's hard to find the fossil remains and to really understand how many species and families, etc., we lost. I want to say 99% easy. That's my opinion. In any case, isotope geochemistry data from sulfate minerals have been interpreted to indicate a decrease in the size of the biosphere of greater than 80% associated with changes in nutrient supplies at the end of that geological age. It is inferred to have been caused by cyanobacteria, which evolved chlorophyll-based photosynthesis that releases dioxygen as a byproduct of water photolysis. There you go. They continually produce oxygen, eventually depleted all the surface reducing capacity from sulfur, hydrogen sulfide, and atmospheric methane over nearly 1 billion years. The oxidative environmental change, compounded by global glaciation, devastated the microbial mats around the Earth's surface. The subsequent adaptation of surviving archaea via symbiogenesis with aerobic protobacteria, which went endosymbiont and became mitochondria, may have led to the rise of eukaryotic organisms and the subsequent evolution of multicellular life forms, i.e., us. Okay, we were the lucky survivors in a roundabout way, if you will. Dave?
Yeah, it could have gone either way. And I can't imagine the extent of that non-oxygenating or oxygen consuming. I can't imagine what that would have been like. Maybe there was something there too, but it led us this way, in this direction. Changing Earth's chemistry. The Great Oxidation Event was an epochal moment in the evolutionary timeline and had several grave consequences, not only on Earth's climate indirectly, but also on the adaptation and evolution of living organisms. Researchers have hypothesized on the impact of the Great Oxidation Event on the Earth's climate by painstakingly estimating geochemical and isotopic signatures of molecules in the Earth's early atmosphere using mass modeling and conducting studies involving redox-sensitive transition metal isotopes. These studies indicate that the chemistry of the Earth's atmosphere changed dramatically as oxygen levels rose and replaced methane. Methane is still present today, but in very minute amounts. Further, it is hypothesized that accumulation of oxygen in the atmosphere led to one of the earliest ice ages on Earth. Methane is a greenhouse gas. Since it traps heat from sunlight and warms the planet, as methane was displaced by oxygen, global temperatures cooled sufficiently to generate ice sheets that extended all the way up from the poles to the tropics. Oxygen was also responsible for formation of the ozone layer in the atmosphere. The UV radiation from the sun split oxygen molecules, O2, into 2 atoms of oxygen, which then reacted with another oxygen molecule to generate ozone, which is O3. Ozone acts as a natural sunscreen to prevent harmful UV radiation from reaching the Earth.
I find it fascinating, Dave, if you really think about it for a second, right? Again, this goes to the point that even if life evolves on very similar planets, let's say, right? All the things that happen in between, if you just look at these 6 big events that happen in Earth's history, and there are other smaller ones in between, by the way, and you look at all the life that was extinguished. In fact, the life that existed before the oxidation event was fundamentally different to the life that exists now in many ways, right? And I think if we go to the bottom of the ocean, maybe inside the Earth, we will find survivors of that time. right? Because clearly there's not much oxygen in the deep, there's not much sunlight, etc., etc. So we will find survivors of that period, quite possibly. But
I know that
the
they've
whole
found
point-
them deep in mines where there's no oxygen, no light, nothing, and they've found that bacteria in the rock, still alive.
Yep. And that's the thing, right? Now, but the whole point here is to underscore the fact how tenuous and random in many ways our present appearance actually is.
Mm-hmm.
To suppose that the same chain of events on other planets would have led to the same outcome biologically as you and I think is beyond any probability calculations we can actually undertake. Okay then. Let's say that's so. If the visitors are unlikely to have come from out there, like at least the ones that look like us, where do they come from? Okay. Now, we have come full circle to the theory that we mentioned at the beginning of this show cycle. Now, this is the theory. The Earth as we know it is populated on the surface. Naturally, many creatures and plants live below in the oceans and in the bowels of the Earth. What if we humans that live on the surface are but third world nation players in comparison to the civilizations that dwell under the ocean or within the Earth? The surface, in other words, is the true developing world. On the surface, we're exposed to radiation, harsh climates, and unforgiving geographies, potential meteoric impacts, and all manner of natural catastrophes. Below the surface, in, let's say, vast chambers, some natural, some purpose-built, most of the environment and living conditions would be controlled. Technology would have to be fairly advanced to ensure life can thrive underground. One thing, though, is clear. The civilization or civilizations that may exist below are static. The phenomena, activities, and stories that have come to us through the ages, millennia in fact, have not changed. The same kind of objects, flying discs, shields, chariots, have haunted our skies for thousands, if not tens of thousands of years. There seems to be very little or no progress for those that pilot those craft. That kind of apparent stagnation makes sense for civilizations that are not only very old, but are also populated by individual beings that are extremely long-lived. Once again, many stories, legends, and myths from many cultures tell us that the gods lived for tens of thousands of years, maybe longer, created us, ruled over us, and also decided our fate. Dave?
That's true. So, this is an aside, and it's an example of the Sumerian king list. This is lines 1 to 39 before the flood. This section, which is not present in every copy of the text, opens with the line, "After the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu. 2 kings of Eridu are mentioned before the city fell, and the kingship was taken to Bad Tibira." This pattern of cities receiving kingship and then falling or being defeated only to be succeeded by the next is present throughout the entire text, often in the exact same words. This first section lists 8 kings who ruled over 5 cities, apart from Eridu and Bad Tibiru. These also included large Zimbir and... Oh, hang on a minute. I've got
Churupak.
Yeah. It's funny, the underscore stops me from seeing whether the P's are P's or not. The duration of each reign is also given. In this first section, the reigns vary between 43,200 years and 28,800 years, for a total of 241,200 years. The section ends with the line, "Then the flood swept over." Among the kings mentioned in this section is the ancient Mesopotamian god Demuzid, the latter Tammuz. For beings like that time moves at a different pace to us. If you expanded the lifespan of a human being to hundreds of thousands of years, the rapid technological progress that we are used to might not make sense, or may in fact be counter to the nature of potentially galaxy-spanning civilization. As you travel great distances, even at fast and light speeds, sorry, I have to cough every once in a while, and we may even be talking about intergalactic voyages here, a relatively static, stable civilization is what you would want in order to avoid confusion and culture shock for returning travelers. A simple example might illustrate the point. As we might leave our home for a week-long summer holiday, we clean up, lock our house, and travel to our holiday destination. The bacteria that live on the countertop of our kitchen start to colonize a few pieces of cheese and bread we might have inadvertently left behind. Thousands of generations of bacteria and fungi will wage war over these crumbs and might eventually settle into a relatively stable arrangement. All we see when we return are bits of mold and fungus, never knowing the epic struggle we see before us as we wipe up the mess with our kitchen sponge. In the ages that have passed for bacteria, molds and assorted critters, our house, our street, our garden, in short, our home, didn't, in all probability, change at all. Which of course is exactly the way we like things to be. If we consider the possibility that we are indeed sharing this planet with a much older civilization or civilizations, a lot of strange events and activities would start to make sense. Meki?
No, take it.
I think maybe just do alternate. The obvious anthropomorphic problem with alleged ETs. Another problem, constant sightings. Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, go. Okay, constant sightings of USOs.
Highly advanced tech effects like Skinwalker Ranch, Bigfoot, etc., USO encounters, disappearances in national parks.
Stories of inner Earth societies, civilizations, and cities.
Mutilations, abductions, and seductions. Meki, take the dot points below.
Sure. Checking on genetic experiments, maybe.
Checking on introduced livestock.
Would crop circles fall into the same category?
Why would not non-terrestrial races give a thought to cows or crops for that matter? It would make sense.
It would make sense.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
There must be like 3 seconds delay between us.
I think there is. It's like you're. See, that's because you're in Denver. That's why.
Yeah, I'm in the underground bunker, I believe, beneath.
No, take it to the end. Take it to the end.
It would make sense if we were talking about a checkup on introduced species after the Great Catastrophe or a similar event. The parts taken, and most genuine mutilations are surgical in their precision, may be used for medical, cloning, or other unfathomable purposes. Where would those civilizations be is a good question. Inside the Earth, under the ocean, slightly out of phase with us, moving so fast we cannot perceive them. Let's look underground first. Meki, I've always been under the belief that they live in the Southern Ocean for some reason. That intergalactic travel is real, however seldom used. I think that if we had aliens here, they might have come here but entered agreements to live on the moon or in the Southern Ocean, or likelihood also beneath, the surface in vast underground labyrinths.
So to be clear, there are reports, obviously, of extraterrestrial visitors that are not anthropomorphic at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't look anything like some are energy beings, etc., etc.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
I agree with you 100%. I think, in fact, there are civilizations here sharing the planet with us that have been here much longer than we have been here, and maybe we are, in fact, their brain children, if you will, and these older or elder civilizations are interacting on a galactic and even intergalactic plane with other civilizations, other extraterrestrials, other colonies, for example, of ourselves, even, as it were. So I think the cosmos is a lot busier. And if you look at all of the reports of UFOs, USOs, other strange sightings, all the weird stuff that we see all the time, right? Which now the government has acknowledged is something. It's very busy, Dave. There is a lot going on. These
True.
are not here and there, and they've been going on for thousands, if not tens of thousands of years. So, but we are not privy to it. We don't see it. Now, I give you a simple example here before going to the advantages of underground living. On the Skinwalker Ranch, which is a program I follow because I think they're actually onto something, though they have to be careful as to whom they involve, but that's up to them. They have found things that are visible with LiDAR, but not to the naked eye.
Yeah.
They've caught things with high-speed cameras, again, not visible to the naked eye. They've caught things moving through solid objects. So there was like this, I guess, the Tic Tac kind of UFO that went into the Mesa, right, and then was gone for a while, and then reappeared. If you put a straight line between where it entered and where it came out, it would have been that point.
Yep.
But it was inside the Mesa and exited it as well, as though the Mesa didn't even exist. And so these are things that are not visible to us for the naked eye and such. Even it can only be seen with highly specialized instruments. And some of the instruments, funnily enough, on Skinwalker Ranch are purpose-built and invented. These are like leading-edge people in LiDAR and in other technologies, which I find fascinating. But we can only perceive a very tiny range of the electromagnetic spectrum. And we've spoken about this before. It's tiny. Visible light is tiny, tiny, tiny. There's a massive spectrum which we're not aware of at all. Infrared we can sense because of the heat. Ultraviolet we can sense because it gives us skin cancer, but that's about it. Okay, so anything beyond that, a lot of the radiation, a lot of the spectral radiation that we come across is actually harmful to us. Gamma radiation, microwave radiation, etc., etc. But they're all
everything above visible light is dangerous to humans.
Yeah, it's not good for us in any way, right? But it's there, and it is something that can be perceived. X-rays, as you call them in German, they're called Röntgenstrahlen after the guy who discovered Dr. Röntgen. Again, an accident, right, where he realized that this certain wavelength, a certain electromagnetic wavelength, could look into your body.
Mm-hmm.
What? I mean, as though your body weren't even there, right? So it would only be stopped by fairly massive, not soft tissue, but bones, etc., right?
I was gonna make a joke about him and say I don't think it was completely transparent about it.
That's what happened. So it is what we perceive, right? To be clear, is only a tiny fraction of reality, right? Now, Isaac Asimov, whom you might know, he came up with the 3 laws of robotics. A great science fiction. I love his work. I really do. I, Robot, Will Smith was based on the Bicentennial Man with Robin Williams. A few other movies based on his work. But he wrote an article in 1989 in June around the advantages of underground living. Right? This goes to the point that we're trying to make here, that advanced civilizations may very well be underground under the ocean. Now, this is what he says. The thought of living underground, of burrowing in the earth like moles, of separating oneself from the air and sky may seem unpalatable. But if we stop to think of it, there can be many advantages to living underground. First, weather would no longer be important. since it is primarily a phenomenon of the atmosphere. Rain, snow, sleet, fog would not trouble the underground world. Even temperature variations are limited to the open surface and would not exist underground. Whether day or night, summer or winter, subtropical or subpolar, temperatures on the ground would be in the neighborhood of 55 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. The vast amounts of energy now expended in warming our surface surroundings when they're too cold or cooling them when they're too warm could be saved. The damage done by weather to humanity and its structures would be gone. Even earthquakes would be only about 1/5 as damaging beneath the surface. Second, local time would no longer be important. The passage of the sun, the tyranny of day and night coming at different times in different places can be avoided. Underground, when there is no externally produced day, the alternation of work, play, and sleep can be adjusted to suit ourselves. The whole world could be on 8-hour shifts, starting and ending on the same stroke everywhere, at least as far as business and community endeavors are concerned. This could be important in a freely mobile world. Air transportation over long distances east and west would no longer entail jet lag. If we leave New York at noon and take 12 hours to get to Tokyo, it will be midnight there and midnight for our own biological clock too. Third, the ecological balance of the Earth would be better off. To a certain extent, humankind encumbers the Earth. It is not only our enormous numbers that take up room. It is also the structures we build to house ourselves and our machines, to make possible our transportation, communication, and recreation. All these things disturb the wild, depriving many species of plants and animals of their natural habitat, and sometimes, as a side consequence, favoring a few others, such as rats and roaches. The more of ourselves and our works we place underground, below the realm of burrowing life, the more room there will be on the planet for other forms of life. Fourth, nature would be closer. It might seem that to withdraw underground is to withdraw from the natural world, but would that be so? Would the withdrawal be so much more complete than it is now when so many people work in city buildings that are often windowless and artificially air-conditioned? Even when there are windows, what does the eye behold in some places but other buildings? One might argue that there's a psychological difference. However, divorced present-day cities, maybe from nature, we are in view of the sun in the sky by looking out the window or by stepping out the door. Isn't that right? But look at it this way. To get away from the city now, to reach real tracts of greenery and of reasonably unspoiled nature, a New Yorker, a Londoner, a Tokyoite must travel horizontally for miles and hours through heavy traffic, first across city pavements, then across suburban sprawls. If we were living beneath, if we had an underworld culture, the countryside would be right there, a few hundred yards above the upper levels of the city. Wherever you are within them, the world of nature would be an elevator right away, and the dwellers beneath would see more greenery under ecologically healthier conditions than dwellers of surface cities today. And remember, there's one more point, that in an underground world of perpetually equitable weather, walking would be much more pleasant. There would be less reason to use transportation facilities for short hauls, thus conserving energy and increasing bodily fitness.
That's so true. I only have to walk out my back door and I'm already in the wild bush, but that's right.
You're lucky. Same, actually, same. Yeah.
So now we go on to Hollow Earth theory. From ancient civilizations to modern researchers and explorers. If you could choose, this is Gaia Star for September 21st, 2017. If you could choose to explore the furthest reaches of outer space or the deepest depths of the Earth, which would you choose? Before your answer, consider this. Some believe there is much more to the inner Earth than rock and molten lava. Supporters of the Hollow Earth theory, also known as the Inner Earth theory, posit traveling to the depths of the Earth would lead to other environments and perhaps even human beings residing there. Intrigued? Take a look at the many groups of people who believe in or research Hollow Earth and decide for yourself what the Earth's interior may have to offer for those who dare to explore it. What is the hollow earth theory? In a nutshell, the idea of a hollow earth posits that planet Earth is either wholly hollow or otherwise contains a substantial interior space. Beliefs about the specifics of the inner Earth vary, but generally revolve around underground civilizations, technological and spiritual advancements, and alternative, even paradise-like environments. Supporters of this theory claim evidence to support it has been stifled by scientific communities such as Need another 7 astronauts, NASA. Ancient Indian beliefs about the inner Earth. Some support for the hollow Earth theory comes from 2 ancient Indian groups. Oh, is that the Makusi Indians and the Hopi Indians? That'll do.
Perfect.
Yes. The Makusi Indians, their claim that a vast network of tunnels connects our world to mysterious chambers located under the surface. This indigenous group, residing in the Amazonian countries of Brazil, Guyana, and Venezuela, have legends in their own oral traditions that speak of an entrance to the earth. They mentioned entering a cavern and travelling 13 to 15 days until they reach the Earth's interior, which is said to be where giants live. Makusi legends named the giants as the protectors of the inner Earth. This one's my favourite. The Hopi Indians. Alongside the Makusi, the Hopi Indians also profess they emerged from an underground shelter after the flood destroyed the Third World. They believe their ancestors derived from this environment. In the Hopi culture, they specifically reference emerging from the Grand Canyon and also mention mysterious ant-like gods and flying shields. Is there proof about hollow Earth? Explorations by various individuals throughout history brought about discoveries that support the inner Earth theory. Admiral Richard E. Byrd of the United States Navy flew to the North Pole in 1926, as well as the South Pole in 1929. He referenced the North Pole as the center of the great unknown and also wrote of his excursions in his diary. In his depictions or descriptions, he references allegedly entering the hollow interior of the Earth, which included mountains, lakes, and rivers, as well as animals and vegetation. He also reports finding cities, civilization, and emissaries of the inner Earth civilization called Agartha. More research about this excursion mentioned that Byrd found New Schwabenland, which featured underground caverns flowing with warm water and signs of vegetation. But neither he nor his crew could stay long to explore due to the aircraft bombardment. Other individuals are also said to have explored these openings to inner Earth, including William Reed, who wrote Phantom of the Poles in 1906. He supported the hollow Earth theory, but without the inner sun or inner shells. More recently, in 2005, Stephen Curry expeditions planned to go to the North Pole region to explore a possible opening into the inner Earth. Meki.
Current ideas regarding the hollow Earth. Those from many walks of life have looked into the hollow Earth theory and what lies within the Earth, from alien theorists, telepathic communicators, and archaeologists. So they're the alien theorists, and researcher David Wilcock stated in interviews, there is an alliance of ancient civilizations living inside the planet. He believes these beings inhabit the inside of the Earth for long periods of time, made possible by hollow cavities on the surface of the crust, which include their own biome replete with bacteria capable of producing its own natural light. He goes on to claim living in these cavities allows for civilizations inside of the Earth to monitor what is happening on the surface of the planet, or outer Earth. That's us. Wilcox specifically mentions the Atlanteans as one group that went underground to survive the chaos occurring on the outside of the planet. Telepathic communicator. While even believers hold up Hollow Earth theory as indeed a theory, Diane Robbins believes she has inner Earth proof. Her telepathic interactions with the civilizations living in the underground civilization of Agartha, which she describes as a network of about 120 subterranean cities. In an interview with Vice, Robbins describes both the inner Earth environment and her interactions with those who live inside the Earth. Robbins says the center of the Earth is a central sun, held in place by gravity, and that there's much more land and ocean in Hollow Earth. She claims the individuals are physically human, like we are, but live in peace, isolation, and seclusion, and through this they have gained their immortality. Her message from inner Earth inhabitants: just call for peace for the planet, because we can only evolve from peace. Archaeologists. In modern-day Germany, thousands of underground tunnels dating to the Stone Age have been studied by researchers including German archaeologist Dr. Heinrich Kusch. They stretch throughout Europe from Scotland to Turkey, but do not all link up. Excuse me. Kusch claims these ancient highways have been found under dozens of Neolithic settlements across Europe. Now, if you have that level of technology, you can fold space together, so you can jump from one point to another, like warp drive. Then it is pretty feasible you could easily have an underground or underwater base. It seems there are a lot of underwater bases where UFOs turn into USOs and hang out. That makes sense. 70% of the Earth is covered with water. And most importantly, there's no humans underneath that water, unless occasionally they go to investigate a shipwreck or something of that nature. That's 70%. That's most of the planet where you can put a base and no one is going to mess with it. No one is going to drop a nuclear missile on your base on the water. From an outside point of view, underwater is an ideal place to put a base on this planet that's filled with insane humans on the surface. The logical place to do is put the base underwater where they are hard to discover. Then you don't have to put up signs like you'll be shot on sight for coming into the alien base. Nothing to worry about. Dave.
Secret UFO underwater bases. UFO sightings are also very frequent by the water today. Now, while there is not as many options to have secretive bases on land, that didn't stop any country in the world from making secret bases. What is very conducive to a secret base, if you have advanced technology, is having it underwater. While your secret base might stand out a bit on land, where obviously the main of it is underground, there is a ton of real estate to have a secret base underwater. Now, in order to fold space, you need to go out of sync with time and gravity, and that way your spaceship can then just move freely about. You don't even have to worry about gravity. Or take the risk, Mackie.
Okay, look, underwater base off the coast of Malibu. I don't think, maybe. California has been a UFO hotspot for years. So when it was theorized that a structure discovered 600 meters below the surface of the water, 10 kilometers off the coast of Malibu, was in fact an alien base, it didn't come as much of a surprise. The structure has a distinct oval shape and what appears to be a flat top. You've seen this, right? I've seen the picture of it. It measures approximately 5 kilometers wide, and there also seem to be pillars holding up the main roof of the mysterious anomaly. These pillars look to be spaced evenly apart, almost as if it were an entrance of sorts. The alleged alien base was first brought into the public arena when Jimmy Church, who hosts the radio show Fade to Black, acted upon information given to him by a listener who went by the name of Maxwell. Maxwell gave coordinates from Google Earth that showed something he believed may be an artificial structure. Church, with his design team, obtained as many different angles of the structure as they could. Church stated that after investigating all of these angles, he very much believed the structure is indeed artificial, even going so far as to say it could be the holy grail for ufologists. Of course, not everyone subscribed to this theory. Earthquake geologist David Schwartz, for example, states that the alien base is most likely nothing more than part of the continental shelf, further stating that he didn't see anything special in the pictures. Ben Hansen, a former FBI agent and an expert in pictures and video, also warned that people should be cautious how they interpret Google Earth images, stating they are pieced together from different sources and can often be misleading.
And there's the music. Guess what? This is the end of another Shiny Side Out with Dave and Mickey. Catch us Tuesday and Thursday mornings, Eastern US time. Have a cup of coffee and wake up to Plato's Cave. And in the meantime, Mickey, what are they to do?
Be safe!
Be safe, indeed. There's something great coming up. Do like, share, comment, and subscribe. Keep the algorithm going. Take care, everyone.